My name is Ken Tharp. My brother and I went to live in the Oklahoma Methodist home, which was located at Britton, Oklahoma, now a part of Oklahoma City. But we were there from 1939 until 1942, and for me, years 9 until 12. My brother 12 until 15, I think. Good memories of good people. The My mother was a teacher in Oklahoma, very poorly paid. There were three of us children. Our two boys went to the Methodist home after living with aunts and uncles. Our sister died while we were there, but eventually our mother taught at Sand Springs, which was regarded as about the best school system in the state at the time. And that made it possible for my brother and me to live with her. So I completed the last 4 years of high school at Sand Springs. My brother finished the last 2 years and then went into the Air Force. Uh, I was 9, I believe. My brother was 12, and I was there until I was 12. Then my brother and I left and went back to live with aunts and uncles and the bulldog Bulger. The first day, I had never been familiar with what we called goat head stickers. That looked like such a cool, comfortable place to put my bare feet on a hot day. It was not so good with all of the goat head stickers, but my brother and I knew a lot of cowboy songs, and I think that was made us friends almost instantly. So it was a good experience. For me, it was a growing experience. I think my brother felt like it was more a reform school. There were about 30 boys and about 30 girls, I believe, at the time. The, uh, the Methodist home at Britton, Oklahoma, had been built as a future college, but that never happened. The buildings were somewhat decrepit, but comfortable, very good staff, very encouraging staff, and a good substitute, I think, for our own parents. Yeah, the uh, the big boys, those who were 12 and over, worked in the kettle barn, milked cows and so forth by hand. Um, the little boys didn't have as much to do, but some of the fun things that we did each evening after school or after dinner, we would play games like Annie Over or I forget some of the others, but I worked in the laundry room, and we made a boat which was not very good, collapsed with cold water in the pond. But since I worked in the laundry room, I was able to get upstairs, get some clean clothes, toss them out the window, and take them down to Travis, who was freezing by that time. I think he kept fairly warm in a haystack until we got some dry clothes down there. Another thing that we enjoyed, we made skis out of barrel staves and pulled those around by ropes. That was kind of fun. Our first attempt at skiing. The This was kind of fun, but was after I left the home. When the Keystone Dam was completed, we had the first and probably the last anything that floats on the river. They released enough water so that we could race in the anything that floats. However, our boats reached the sand before the water got there, so we put our boats into the sand or mud and that sort of thing. So I think that was the first and last anything that floats on the river. That was fun, but gives me good memories of Sand Springs and my friends there. Reverend Parham and his wife Elizabeth were wonderful. What did you call them? Matron and yeah, I guess you would call them our house parents. They were very good people, and I remember Miss West. I forget. I think she may have been secretary to Reverend Hubble, who was the superintendent. But she was a very personable, very kind and helpful person. And Hugh Rohn worked with the boys in the farm, and he was very good, except when we made tunnels in the among the barrels of, not the barrels, the bundles of hay, and he didn't like that so much, so we got spankings over that. Over that. Oh, I learned from my roommate Orville Huddleston that you don't just stand there and take a whipping. You start yelling, "Oh, oh, oh," before he even hits you. And that seems to work out pretty well. Because I did not cry. The Reverend said, "It seems to be working all right." Then I remembered to scream, "Oh, oh, oh." And that worked out well. I thought of Dad as being a casualty of the Depression. He had been a grocer in Mountain Grove, Missouri, and was too good a person in many ways. He extended credit to the families who needed help until he went under himself. Uh, we don't know if he had schizophrenia, became down with schizophrenia, or bipolar, but he was institutionalized for 40 years until his death, until my wife Marty, who was a saint, At the time, they were trying to remove people from institutions and have community care. The idea was very good, but the community care did not develop. So we looked around for suitable nursing homes. Each seemed to be worse than the other. The one that seemed to be very good, about 30 miles away from where we lived, seemed good, but was short staffed, so it was not approved. Anyhow, uh, in the time that Dad lived with us, my brother insisted on taking him to Louisiana, which would have been against the law, but insisted. I finally yielded on that. But that was not a good situation. He expected Dad to do something rather than just sit around all the time. When you've been institutionalized, you do a lot of sitting. Anyhow, that didn't work out. They drove him back to Warrensburg, and with our three small kids, he would wake up at night and be fascinated by lighting a match and looking at it. And we figured with three small kids, this is not good. So we took him back to the hospital number 3. And the sad thing was that he said, I didn't know what I did. I don't know what I did wrong that was wrong. But the staff were kindly, they were glad to see him back. He was glad to see his friends back there. So that worked out pretty well. The food was good. I didn't care for Spanish rice, but that was my first exposure to it. Until then, rice was a breakfast food, and I liked it pretty well as a breakfast food. the There were about 8 of us at each table. One of the big boys served as head of the table. I didn't entirely like the division of butter. It seemed that each person would take half of it. By the time it got around to the small kids, there wasn't much butter left. But one thing I remember about the food, the we frequently had ice cream with a big 5-gallon manual freezer. One girl who made the ice cream, we wondered why it took so long to harden. When they opened up, they learned that she had put in, I think, 4 pints of sugar rather than 4 cups. So we had overly sweet ice cream that day. We went to church there at the home. Um, there was a fairly large assembly room where we had service for all of us. Then we would go to Sunday school, and that was good. Actually, I did not learn about the Trinity until I was in high school in the 9th grade in Sand Springs, where we said the Lord's Prayer before every assembly, and that made me begin to wonder, Do I believe all of that? Not really. I like the love and the kindness that I felt in the Methodist Church. I remember when we had lived in Tahlequah, we had gone to the Baptist Church. They were not very kind to a widow with 3 children. The Methodists were much kinder, and I think love on. I think their slogans nowadays was something like "open minds, open hearts, open doors," and I like that because that was the spirit of the home, really. When we were in Tahlequah, we lived mainly with aunts and uncles. I lived with Morris and Rosa and their dog Bulger. I think my brother had a happier situation with Uncle Condi's family, which had 2 boys and a girl, and horses, where they learned to ride. I learned to ride bareback. That was not so good whenever he went through a dip and I slid off the back. I never learned to stay on. On holidays, the Methodist churches throughout the state gave gifts. I think each of us had 3 choices or something. We were given an old bike, and I learned to ride that. It was a major achievement when I was able to go about 10 or 15 feet without falling. But I just remember the kindness of everyone. The Methodists were and are wonderful people. I kept in close touch with Orville Huddleston and his family. That was the main one. Uh, Jack Jeffers and Marion Biggs were in my class. I was fairly close to Marion. That was a family of 4, which also was separated. And thanks to you for all of the work that you've done in keeping families together. That is so important. They give each other so much more strength. Thank you. I think I've picked up on what was said since then. The mother of Anderson Cooper, Gloria Vanderbilt, had told him, "Everybody is carrying a heavy burden, so be kind." So I've tried to remember that. I would give what encouragement I could to show that he or she is somebody and that they need all of the attention and care that can be given to them. I hope the foster care is working well in Oklahoma. And I think with the follow up that you folks give them, it's probably as well or better than in most parts. Keep up the good work and treat them as your own children and don't separate them. I think that would be it. I appreciate more and more the kindness and help within the family, the aunts and uncles. I think there were about 7 aunts and uncles, and they were all extremely helpful. They didn't have much, but they shared what they had. We uh, we were bused into Bagley High School and junior high. By the time I went on to high school, we were in Sand Springs, so I had 4 years there. I think mainly around holidays and birthdays. I remember we did have a lot of fun. They took us to movies in Oklahoma City probably about once a month and took us for a swim during the summer. I forget the name of the lake, but that was a lot of fun. We would go there weekly. We would drive by May Avenue where a lot of homeless families would camp, and I think that made us realize how fortunate we were in having a good, warm, comfortable place with good staff to help. It is so good to have you here. And again, thanks for keeping families together, and raising 8 youngsters must have been a big job for you, but I see that you have survived.